Wonderful. So as we're starting a Healing Power of Plants and Nutrition event, I would love to start with our first speaker, Alexandra Babayan. Alexandra is a licensed acupuncturist, herbal medical herbalist, Qigong instructor, and lifestyle coach. Alexandra also a creator and owner of 5 Seasons School. And I myself took her classes in 5 Seasons School this spring, and I had an amazing results because they definitely gave me support I needed to go through COVID-19 and just to stay grounded, to stay healthy, in my best mood and my best self. And I don't want to share more myself. I want Alexandra share her story and just jumping into conversation.
Thank you so much, Anna, for inviting me and giving this possibility to talk on my favorite topic, Chinese medicine and food therapy. I can talk about it, a lot because I'm really passionate about it. But first I will maybe tell my story, because 8 years ago, I couldn't imagine that I will be on this, place where I am right now. 8 years ago, my life was totally different. I was living in Moscow, Russia, and I was single mom working a lot. And then during a weekend time, I always had meetings with my girlfriends, and we were partying and alcohol and cigarettes and all that stuff. And I was eating kind of, whatever I could find, on my way between work and taking care of my son. And at the end of 2011, I was actually diagnosed with dysplasia of cervix. It is a disease where the cells on the surface of the cervix start to change, and it's a kind of a first ding ding bell before the cancer of the cervix. So I was, at that time, I was kind of scared, but at the same time I was thinking, like, why me? Why everyone, lives their lives okay, and I always have something that I need kind of to worry about. But at that time I was going through some changes. I met my future husband, and I moved to US in 2012, and actually didn't have time to take care of myself. So after a while, actually, when I go and check I did a pap smear, and then my dysplasia went further, and I had a precancerous stage. My doctor said that I became emotional. So my doctor said that I will need to go through surgery. And so I read about this condition, and I was planning to have more kids. So I decided that I asked him how much time do I have before I will need a surgery. And my doctor said, I can give you 6 months. And after that, you will need to do surgery. So at that point, I already started to, dig deeper and think about the health, right? And what caused this disease. And part of that was the stress that I had, and another part of that was my diet and lifestyle. So I found a naturopathic doctor, and she said that I need to transition to a plant-based diet. It's a kind of a part of the treatment plan. And then we did some treatments for cervix, applications to the surface of the cervix, and then I was taking different supplements to help my immune system to fight this kind of precancer stage. And I started to dig more, and I learned that plant-based diet is actually number one recommendation from a lot of people who are going through kind of cancer, because plant-based diet helps our body to reduce inflammation and then increase immune system, to detox our body. And I was so fascinated about it. And I was at some point even angry that, you know, it's something that we have a lot of research on that, but not all doctors saying about it. And so I transitioned to plant-based diet, and my treatment went well. And my doctor, after 6 months, saw improvements, and I actually turned back to dysplasia. I don't know if someone familiar, there is like a grades of dysplasia. And at that time, after treatment, I had a second stage of dysplasia, which was still kind of not the best, but it wasn't already precancerous stage. So it took me a year more to turn back to dysplasia 1. And now I don't have, my pap smear is coming clear, and they don't see any kind of changes in my epithelium. So that was so exciting. Kind of, it was a miracle for me at the same time, but at the same time, I saw that I did a lot of work, and I was so inspired and decided to do the same. And I went to graduate school and became a Chinese medicine practitioner, because in Chinese medicine, there are a lot of herbs, and it's also a system that treats people holistically. And in Chinese medicine, usually if the person comes to us, we will approach their condition through 5 arms that I call branches. It is through acupuncture, herbs, massage, qigong, and food therapy. So food therapy, it's a big part of the treatment, and all patients will get some guidance in their, you know, treatment plan. No, but the interesting thing that in Chinese medicine, there are a lot of kind of animal products as well, and it was one of my kind of the first things that I was kind of, you know, thinking like, oh, why they all kind of eat meat. And our teachers was saying like, you need to prescribe people eat meat. And I remember that I was only one person in my school who was plant-based. And I realized that, you know, sometimes we are taking all the knowledge kind of 100% without thinking and analyzing it. And when I started to think about the Chinese medicine that was created thousands of years ago, you know, their lifestyle was totally different than we have right now, right? Environment was totally different. They were moving much more, and actually they didn't eat meat kind of 3 times per day, 7 days per week. And it was more like a medicine in some cases. Most of the time, for example, they would prescribe meat for a mother who gave a birth because she kind of was losing blood, and they wanted to, you know, help her to recover faster. But right now we have much more different approaches, right? We have access to totally different and different kinds of food, and we have access to herbs, so it's much easier to stay healthy on a plant-based diet, and it's much more healthier for modern people because we're sitting a lot, we're not moving much, and we have a lot of stress. So actually those plants are helping us to detox our body, to reduce stress, to replenish our body, and just thrive and be happy. And that was a kind of short intro. So, I would like to share my presentation, my screen, where I will go through food therapy in Chinese medicine. So food therapy, it's a big deal in Chinese medicine, and we will treat food the same as herbs. So we're studying herbs for 4 years, and then we're mastering this system for a long time. The same with food. There is a saying in classics of Chinese medicine that the highest doctor will be able to treat with food. And there is another saying that the best doctor will be that one that can prevent disease. So it's totally different approach. And Chinese medicine was created actually not fixing people, but actually prevent them from disease. So it is easier to use it before you start to have any serious conditions. But at the same time, we can treat diseases with Chinese medicine, but it will take a little bit longer. And in Chinese medicine, there are different theories on which we're kind of treating people. One of those theories is the 5-element theory. And the idea is that everything is, working through these 5 elements: water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. The same elements we have in our body. So, for example, wood element will be a liver and gallbladder, fire will be a heart and small intestine, and earth will be digestive system, metal will be lungs and large intestine, and water will be kidney and bladder. And I will not go deep on explanation why it is so. The most important thing that you need to know right now that you see, like on the left, there is a cycle that called generation cycle. So each element will generate another element. So water will give a birth to wood, and wood will give birth to fire. For example, right, when the wood forests will be dry, for example, there will be a fire, and then the ash will nourish the earth, right? And then in the earth there are some I don't know how it's in English, some minerals or metals that you can find, and metal can melt and become a water, kind of this idea. And then there is another cycle, which is a controlling cycle. So each element generates another, but also controlling. And it's very important in food therapy, because when we see what is happening in the body, we should understand what element became unbalanced. And when one of the elements become unbalanced, then they start to attack another element, or they cannot give a birth to another element, and then there will be a lot of disharmonies in the body. And in food therapy we have basic principles. So if there is a yin and yang, every food we can divide. For example, fruits and vegetables will be yin, will be more that will kind of nourish our inside. Maybe I need to talk a little bit about the yin and yang. I don't see you, so I cannot know if everyone is kind of, on the same page with me and kind of following me.
Yeah, but we're following. Yeah,
okay.
Alexandra. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there is a yin and yang. Each food, each product has their own energy. One product will nourish inside of our body, and another will be nourish yang side of the body. Inside of the body, it's more material. For example, blood will be yin side of our body. And yang, it's more functional, right? It's something that we cannot touch or see, but it's kind of happening. And another principle is the flavor. So there are 5 different flavors that will benefit 5 organs. And 5 organs, the main one is the liver, heart, spleen, which is digestive system, lungs, and kidney. So by using different flavors, we can actually tonify those organs. And the same idea with the colors. Each element has its own color. And for example, if we're using green color, we will work on liver, and I will talk about it later. And there is a direction of the energy. So each product, each food can actually influence the direction of the energy that is kind of flowing in our bodies. So for example, if the person will have vomiting, we will say that this is a rebellious chi, right? The energy of the stomach goes the opposite way. So it's supposed to go down, but right now when the person is vomiting, it's going upwards. So we will prescribe food that and herbs that will actually anchoring and will bring the stomach energy downwards. So this is kind of the idea behind it. And there are 5 flavors. It is pungent, salty, sweet, sometimes bland, sour, and bitter. So every flavor corresponds to one of those 5 main organs, and I will show you further. There are 5 colors: green, red, yellow, orange, white, and black. And here we are starting to talk about first element, which is wood. And wood element associated with a green color, and the main organ is liver. So if person has some issues with liver, or for example, we're in the spring season, which is a liver season, we want to incorporate more green color food. And here on the slide, there is alpha sprouts, asparagus, broccoli, collard greens. You can read all those green leafy products. They are really good for liver. They will detoxify liver. They will reduce inflammation in the body. They will lower the cholesterol level. So it's all issues that usually liver will provide. And the pungent flavor is a liver flavor. So it's mostly like ginger, garlic, raw onions, white radish. So the pungent flavor will be kind of helping to work with the stagnant energy. And the liver is one of those organs that is prone to stagnation. So if we're eating fatty food, if we're having a lot of stress, if we're moving not much, our liver will be stuck. So pungent flavor will actually help to kind of break down that stagnant energy. And then we are going to fire element, and the organ is heart, and the color is red. And so if, for example, we are in summer, and right now in Chinese calendar we're in summer, it's a great time to tonify our heart and our cardiovascular system. And if person has issues, for example, with capillaries, with arteries, kind of numbness in their hands, or cold hand and feet, palpitations, high blood pressure, and all that stuff, then person needs to eat more red, purple color food. And the flavor is salty flavor. And here's, I need to say that in Chinese medicine, small amount of flavor will tonify the organ, but a big amount of this flavor will actually damage the organ. So if you're eating a lot of salty food or salt, then you will be damaging your cardiovascular system, right? And high blood pressure will come right away. But if you're incorporating small amount salty flavor, then it will tonify. And it doesn't mean only, for example, if like Anna, who doesn't eat salt, you just incorporate some miso, sea vegetable, sesame, umeboshi plum. It's like a salty and 5 flavors plum and pickles. And for our digestive system, it's a yellow color, so yellow and orange. So everything, for example, like a sweet potato is amazing food for digestive system. It's a high in nutrients, and for people who has kind of weak digestion, it will help to tonify energy of digestive system. And the flavor is a sweet or blend. And it's interesting that most of the time when people will be craving sweet, right, they will be kind of crazy on sweet things. That will mean that a person has some issues with digestive system. And this person shouldn't eat kind of tons of sweet products, because it's actually will make everything worse. But incorporating sweet products like squash, yams, cooked grains, cooked cabbage, carrots, that will actually help to tonify the digestive system. I hope I'm not super fast, and I will be happy to share this presentations with everyone. That way you will kind of see my notes. And so the next element is a metal, and it's lungs, and the color is white. So everything that is white will be tonifying lungs, and lungs are the season of the autumn. So for example, when we're getting in the fall, it is very important to start eat white color food, and it will be tonifying our lungs. And in Chinese medicine, lungs are very, very important, because they are responsible for our immune system. If we're having weak lungs, if we're kind of lazy breathers who are kind of breathing very superficial, we will have issues with our immune system, and it also kind of connected with digestive system, but it's another topic. So the white color will be garlic, fennel, white cauliflower, and I didn't write here the very beneficial and healing food for lungs is a pears. Very nourishing, very rejuvenating. So I highly recommend to eat pears, especially during fall. And the flavor is sour. So the sour will be kind of astringing our lungs. And also the sour flavor is usually those products that high in vitamin C. So this is also a correlation between immune system, right? Because vitamin C will help with our immune system. And daikon also, actually, I don't see, did I write it? Maybe. So daikon is also very good for lungs. And white food, I will go back. White food is also activates lymphocytes, which is also our white blood cells, and it's a first defensive mechanism in our body. So it's also, there is the connection between Western world and Eastern world. So white color food removes viruses, fungi, yeast infections. They're the white color food immune boosters, and they're harmonizing our hormone levels. So there is interesting that there is always the connection between kind of Western and Eastern world. And then we are going to our last element, which is kidney. I'm sorry, the element is water, but the organ is kidney and the color is black. And in Chinese medicine, kidneys are very important. And in thousands of years ago, they didn't separate kidney itself and adrenal glands. So they saw this system as one. And it is our kind of life batteries. So we need kind of to take care of our kidneys, including adrenal glands, to have a happy life when we're getting older. And black food is food that is usually high in antioxidants, and it's kind of a superfood, usually we call it in West, and it's a powerhouse of nutrition. Black currants or blueberries are very famous for their high level of nutrients and antioxidants. And they also have anti-inflammatory properties, a lot of minerals, vitamins. So very smart will be to include more black color foods into your diet. So you can see on the picture and then on the description of black color, the ideas what black food it can be. And for kidneys, the flavor is bitter. So bitter flavor, it's in Chinese medicine has a kind of descending energy. So for example, when a person will have a high blood pressure, right, if that person ate a lot of salty food, then this person will need to eat more bitter flavor food to kind of descend energy. And bitter flavor will also increase urination. So that way we will kind of helping our urinary system of the, I'm forgetting the words, will help our kidneys kind of to descend energy, and that way will help our heart. And in Chinese medicine, we have kind of big connection between heart and kidney. So I'm like, I feel like I ran a marathon.
That's wonderful. Yeah, Alexandra, thank you very much. So, I mean, so much knowledge there, and your photos made me hungry now.
Yeah,
they were so good.
And I also I wanted to say, because I realized that I didn't say the most important thing. So when, for example, person has some diseases, then practitioner will prescribe, food therapy, because it's just the tip of the iceberg that I showed you, because each organ has its own yin and yang and qi. So we will need to figure out if the person, for example, has a deficiency of yin of the heart or liver yang, and so it will be a lot of small details. But for a relatively healthy person, if there is like not if, for example, you're tired or you have some aches there and there, so that's generally healthy, right? So in this case, person need to follow that we call a rainbow diet. So you will need to incorporate, each meal has to have all 5 colors, right? That way you kind of will tonify all 5 organs. And you need to kind of trying to incorporate 5 flavors as well to your plate. And another very important tip that I want to share is the chewing. I feel like nowadays most of the people are kind of skipping this stage of digestive system, and actually digestion starts in our mouth. And it's very important to chew as many times as you can. And in Chinese medicine, we're saying that it should be 39 times. It's like a magical number that in Qigong system and in Chinese medicine. So you will be kind of mixing food with the saliva, and in the saliva we have a lot of enzymes that will break down the carbohydrates. And it's very important not to eat with the people that you don't like, to be stressed about, and don't read news or something, because all that stuff will actually affect your digestive system. So the way how you absorbing nutrients, because when we are reading, for example, our body doesn't know where to send our attention to digest the information or to digest the food. So that's very important.
Awesome. Thank you, Alexandra. Alexandra, we have a question here from the chat. What about spices, just to use spices?
Right. Yeah, spices is very important, and some of the spices will follow, for example, to the category of pungent food. And it's a good question, because one of like many thousands of years ago, spices was one of the expensive products, right? People were trading and making money on them. And it's true that it's very important to include spices, especially in a plant-based diet. From Chinese perspective, different products will have different temperatures, energetically temperatures. So a lot of raw food, for example, it's very important to eat raw, but it's will be a good idea to include some spices that will warm up your digestive system. So that way you kind of balancing out this energetic in the products.
Wonderful. Alexandra, and guys, do we have any questions for Alexandra? You can type them in the chat. You can unmute yourself. You can choose send question privately to me or Alexandra, and I'm going to just read it. So that's an option as well.
And I'm reading some of the questions. For example, Irina is salt for some, it is surprise to me. So yeah, there is an explanation for that. It doesn't mean that you need to eat a lot of salty food. It means that during summer, it is very important to have some salt, not like sea salt, but for example, some seaweed, for example. And what happens in summer, we are sweating and we are losing our sodium, because if you lick your sweat, it will be salty, right? So the idea behind it, that you are kind of helping your body to hold some water that you are kind of losing during hot weather. So it doesn't mean that you need kind of put a lot of salt in your diet. And this is what I said about a small amount will tonify, but a large amount will damage the system.
Wonderful. Alexandra, could you tell us, like in one sentence, of what other lifestyle habits you incorporate in your daily routine, and what habits you recommend for others to try?
Yeah, so one of the lifestyle habits that I recommend to everyone, and Anna knows that I'm a big fan of breathing techniques, because I see how it is important and how it affects all system. And in Chinese medicine, qi will be created from air and from food. So with the food, for example, some of the people will figure it out, like, right, what to eat. But with the air, not much people are taking good attention on the way how they're breathing. So the breath work will also stimulate our digestive system and our large intestine, because in Chinese medicine there is a connection between lungs and large intestine. So, and it also will help with the circulation of the blood, and it will train our capillaries, which is one of the most important parts in our body, because in capillary beds happening all the magic where the transfer of all nutrients and gases happening. So big thing, breath work. Another very important thing is movement, for sure, because when there is no movement, the qi cannot flow, and there will be happening stagnation. And where the stagnation, there will be a disease, because our blood is helping to replenish our tissues. So it's very important. And I'm a really big fan of following seasons. So it's a huge different topic, but as you also said that you took one of my classes, which focuses on the seasonal living, we are kind of adjusting our lifestyle to seasons, because the energy in the nature is changing. So we have to change not all our clothes, right, seasonal clothes, but also our lifestyle.
Wonderful. Perfect. Thank you very much. And we have a few questions, but I would love to, Alexandra, to move to other speakers and then come back at the end to the questions and answer them. Oh, actually, I got a confirmation that this is the question for you, Alexandra, specifically. Is it healthy to drink during the meal, and what could we drink?
Yeah, it's a good question, and there are a lot of debates about it. So in Chinese medicine, we have like, how to say, we're getting very angry and not irritable, very worried when we see how people are drinking, for example, before food, ice water or water with ice. It's a number one no. It's a big no, because everything that is super cold or like frozen, it will damage our stomach fire. So the best thing is to drink just a little bit of, for example, warm water before food. Or it's also acceptable to have a small amount of cup, like those cup that you see in tea rooms, like really not like this size, but really small amount of the green tea, good quality of green tea.
You want to say not this size?
Yeah,
yeah. Size.
No. Yeah, and then while you're eating, you can sip on warm green tea, because green tea will also help to digest some fats, for example, and so yeah, but not drinking cold water or any sweet water, because it will ferment food and not in a big amounts.
Wonderful. Perfect. Thank you very much. Yeah, we have another question, but if that's okay, guys, I would love to leave it for the end, and just, everybody's gonna answer it.
I can also, typing in the chat as well.
Oh, that's another option. Yeah, please, Alexandra, that would be great. Really appreciate it. That was wonderful. I myself learned a lot of things, and I'm gonna just add one thing, that I started practicing breath work with Alexandra. I started with Alexandra, and the results are amazing. I mean, truly amazing. It's a part of my daily routine, and I see the difference. And I just don't know how come I was so not aware of its benefits, and was not really trying it earlier. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank
I would
you.
like to move and to present our next speaker. So guys, I'm really excited about this speaker, because Theresa Free is a person I was actually, looking for when I started my journey. I was looking for a person who would have knowledge, education, and would just guide me and answer all questions I had, and I had a lot. And unfortunately at the time, I just didn't know where to look at, like where to find this kind of person, and now I'm so happy to present her because she really has an amazing mission in life. Theresa is a family nurse practitioner, and her mission is to reverse obesity and chronic disease that is overtaking America. And Theresa also is a lifestyle medicine practitioner, and I would love her to share her story with us now. Please.
Thank you, Anna. And thank you, everybody, for being here. It's so great to see so many folks that are interested in in developing a healthier lifestyle. And it certainly has been a long journey for me. And it's one of those things that we just do one step at a time. And so I would like to share my journey with you. I have had a very long history of struggle with being overweight. And I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen here with you because I have done just a little bit of a PowerPoint. Okay. All right. So as I said, I had a lifelong struggle with weight issues. I went on my first diet when I was 10 years old. My mom took me to a diet program called Taking Off Pounds Sensibly. And I lost 8 pounds on that first week of that diet. And I think that that was the beginning of my yo-yo dieting journey. I was very much rewarded with having lost that weight. And so that became the cycle of getting rewarded for losing weight and then being kind of ostracized or punished when my weight would go up. That began, and then in high school I learned that by running long distances, I could keep my weight down and still eat whatever I wanted. And so I developed a form of what's known as exercise bulimia, where you eat a lot and then just exercise it all off, right? So I did that and kept my weight down. And at that time in high school, I weighed about 142 pounds at my lowest running weight. After that, my first child was born in 1988. I, of course, developed, had the baby weight that I wanted to lose. And so I joined Weight Watchers for the first time. And this was a program that seemed very reasonable to me, and I followed it, but I had a hard time trying to sustain it, to stay on it, to continually count the points and to always be eating the way that they recommended. So I would lose weight for a while and then I would fall off of the proverbial wagon, and then my weight would go up, and I just went up and down and up and down. And I also went to nursing school, became a nurse, and was very interested in nutrition and health and wanted to be a healthy person. I wanted to be a role model for my patients. And so this was something that I always had a struggle with, not feeling like I was being the role model that I wanted to be when I wasn't able to manage my weight. So I did read every diet book out there. I did lots of study. I tried everything. And then in about 2005, I did return to Weight Watchers, which I had done many, many, many times, and lost about 50 pounds that time and got to what they consider your goal weight, which was the top of the range of my BMI, the body mass index that's within the healthy range. And I felt pretty good at that weight, 160, but I, again, wasn't able to maintain it. So another program, so let's see, I want to share, let's see, one more thing here, this one. This is another program that I did. This was called 2020 Lifestyles. It's a medically supervised weight loss program. I thought, well, this time I'm really going to take this seriously. I'm going to do this medically supervised weight loss program. I spent a lot of money on this program, thousands of dollars on this program. And I, as you can see here, this was in November 2011, was at stage 1 obesity. So I weighed 196 pounds. My body fat percentage was 45%, and my BMI was 30.7. And on that program, which was pretty much, it was heavy exercise and heavily meat-based, so kind of like a low-carb type diet, I lost 30 pounds. But again, I really wasn't able to sustain it, wasn't able to maintain that. And it was right about this time, towards the end of this program, in fact, it was in February of 2012, when I was introduced to the documentary Forks Over Knives. And my best friend at the time, Susie B. Free, introduced me to Forks Over Knives. I watched that and I was just so astounded by the facts presented in there. At this time, I was working as a nurse in hospice, and I was caring for patients who were very much like the patients that were presented in Forks Over Knives. They were patients who had basically been given a death sentence, that they were going to die unless they changed their diet. And these patients of Dr. Esselstyn's were able to do that using a plant-based diet, and were able to live, some of them like as many as 20 years, very healthy after switching their diet. And I had never heard of anyone reversing heart disease at all, let alone with just something as simple as making a diet change. And so this completely changed my mindset about what was possible, because before that I had always followed a Western medicine approach. We managed diseases with pills and procedures. We did not do anything to prevent or reverse these diseases. And so for me, the fact that you could prevent and reverse a disease with the food that you put on your fork was just completely eye-opening to me. I did go on to read the China study by T. Colin Campbell, as well as Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease by Caldwell Esselstyn, which then I was completely convinced that this was the way that I needed to go for my health. And so both Susie and I decided on February 8th of 2015 to adopt a plant-based diet. So very much like Anna did, I just one day decided this is what I'm going to do, and I went plant-based. This was not the end of the story for me. So unfortunately, what happened between 2012 and 2015 was that I fell into a trap that a lot of people fall into, I think, when they switch to a vegan diet, is that you end up eating too many vegan processed foods. And so what happened to me, I also was very fond of two of my very favorite foods, which were chips and beer, which also are plant-based, right? Which I was very excited about. So, but this is what happens if you follow a vegan diet that's not healthy, okay? I went up to my highest adult weight of 233.9 pounds on a vegan diet, okay? This was not a good plan. I do not recommend that, okay? So then I learned about the neuroscience of food addiction, and I learned that I had addictive tendencies towards particularly sugar, flour, but also that alcohol component in there as well. I went on a weight loss program that eliminated sugar and flour and alcohol. And this was my weight loss phase. So I'm just showing you, this is my handwritten chart of my weight loss over a period of 18 months. So I'm just going to go through these next few slides just to show you the trajectory of my weight loss. So essentially just watching my weight fall off at this point. And this is over a period of 18 months. So this was kind of the central portion. still a downward trajectory. You can see there's a few periods of time. Each one of these blocks is a week. And so you can see even there were periods where I may have maintained for a period of even 4 weeks, but the trajectory was always going downhill. And then I stabilized out and coasted into what into my maintenance phase. And this is now where I live, right about 135. So this was in 2017, and I can show you some after pictures. So these were my after pictures when I completed my weight loss phase. And I had lost a total of, it was 100, it turned out to be 101 pounds, essentially, just over 100 pounds. And this is Susie Be Free, my best friend and now wife. This was a picture of her with her children back in 2015. She weighed 220 pounds. And this was her at her weight loss goal at 125 pounds, having lost 95 pounds. So not only is a whole food plant-based diet good for you, but it's also good for your family. She just was kind enough to do this program with me and support me through it. And she saw the results also. So it's quite amazing like that. Here we are at maintenance. This is a picture just from 2018, 135 and at a BMI of 20. Here's the two of us together, still maintaining this weight over 3 years later now.
That's beautiful. Oh my gosh, Theresa, thank you very much for sharing.
Yes.
It's a beautiful, story. And I just wanted to say that I see so many people who give up and who just say, I was born this way, or whatever way they think they were born. And that's my story. That's how I'm going to live. And you were not giving up from age of, 8 years old?
Yeah.
You were kind of on your way to find a sustainable way of living, and just amazing results, and really, we're really touched. Theresa, what health changes you see or you have noticed since you went plant-based, and what's your lifestyle looks like? What else from diet you do in your life to stay energized, positive, happy, healthy?
That's a great question. Thank you. So I did have high blood pressure when I was at that high weight. So not only did I reverse my stage 2 obesity, but I also reversed my hypertension. I certainly had, I was really just miserable. I was very depressed. I was, like I had mentioned, being a nurse and not feeling like I was a good role model for my patients. I felt like a hypocrite. And so a lot of the changes that happened for me were, in terms of my mood and my outlook, which certainly are much better. And, I think in terms of, I couldn't do a lot of the things that I wanted to do, like being able to hike, which is one of the lifestyle things that I do now. I do take 1 day a week to go hiking, and that's one of the things I love to do. I also am a Kundalini yoga instructor, so I practice yoga frequently, and do a daily meditation practice. And of course, my diet really is the keystone of my health, my healthy lifestyle. And I do. I didn't prepare a lot in terms of what that really looks like, but in essence, it is pretty much a whole food, plant-based, as Anna mentioned, SOFA-free diet. And it's a little more structured than that and a little more complicated than that, but in essence, that's really what it is. But it is the key to my good health.
That's amazing. And Theresa, how easy it is to actually live and follow this diet, because there are so many stores around us. When we travel, it's not maybe always easy to find food. That's what people may think. So I just wonder how easy it is for you to follow this lifestyle and not to fall back into maybe even vegan, eating junk food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. Thank you. So what I tell people is that what was really hard was living in a bigger body, being unhealthy, being uncomfortable in my body. That was what was really hard. This plan that I follow now, in my mind, is one of the easiest things I've ever done. I have simplified my diet to a way of eating that is so simple. I could pretty much do it in my sleep. It's completely automatic for me now. Of course, there was a period of learning where you're having to learn what that looks like to eat this way. And it's a matter of really changing our habits, right? So once you have essentially trained your brain, the way I like to talk about it, to do a new lifestyle habit, then from there on, it's pretty much as easy as riding a bike, right?
Right, absolutely. Theresa, you mentioned that you are nurse practitioner, so
yes.
You have education
Yes.
being a nurse. And how much of nutritional education you've got as you were training become a nurse?
So very, very little in the actual nursing school. I did take a nutrition class, but it was mostly just focused on what the different vitamins and minerals were and what the recommended daily allowances are, those kind of things, which really didn't tell me what I needed to do. How really I didn't know anything about how food affected the brain. And that was a lot of what made the change for me, was learning the neuroscience of how the brain is affected by what we eat.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a question, and I have another question to you. But before I ask, I just wanted to say that Alexandra has a commitment at 12:15 that you need to be at. It's another webinar, another meeting, and I just encourage you guys, or type your question in chat for her right now, or just stay put. I'm going to send her information to you, and you're going to contact her directly later today and just make a connection and get to know each other better. All right. Thank you very much, Alexandra. If you need to go, feel free. Thank you. I really, really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you so much, and sorry that I'm kind of jumping off. And Theresa, a really inspiring story. I love it, and thank you for sharing. And I still have 10 minutes, so maybe I will hear some story from Danielle as well. And who wants to ask questions? I will send Anna my information, and we'll happy to share more.
Absolutely. Thank you. So Theresa, we have questions here for you. And so how do you plan your shopping? Do you create your menus? And what's your favorite cooking recipe library, if you have any?
Excellent. Shopping. So, a lot of these things are things that did take some getting used to, but essentially I shop mostly from farmers markets, from the food co-ops. I try to buy as much local organic produce as I can. So that's generally where I do my shopping for the most part. Because I do stick to just really all those very natural whole foods. So it's really quite simple when you're just buying basically foods as they're grown from the earth, right?
Yeah.
And as far as cookbooks and recipes, I do follow Forks Over Knives. They have a great new magazine out that just came out, I believe, not too long ago, that is called, I believe it's called Learning to Eat Plant-Based. It has 59 recipes in it, which is really good. I think I would refer you to look that one up. I also, I have a lot of favorites. I have a lot of favorite recipes. I have a lot of favorite cookbooks. Another one that I really like that's sugar-free, which is one of the things that's sometimes hard to find in other plant-based ones, is I like Katie Gates' work. And you can look her up online too. Katie's Bright Kitchen. Oh, I can't.
Sorry, yeah, I was talking and I didn't see that I was muted. If you could type in the chat the name, so people could just see how it's how to spell it.
Sure.
Katie, yeah.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, wonderful, thank you. And so Svetlana asked this question of what's better to eat for breakfast, and I just think that it would be great if each of you would answer this, because it's something that is actually gives a start for the whole day. So I really believe that breakfast needs to be nutritious and a right breakfast. So what do you recommend eating for breakfast?
So my standard breakfast is oatmeal with, I put an almond milk on there, and I eat usually 3 or 4 different servings of fruit. So like for this morning I had oatmeal with like bananas, strawberries, mangoes, and then I also put a little bit of nuts on that, so a little bit of almonds or pumpkin seeds, and the almond milk. Yeah, so that would be my typical standard breakfast. My favorite breakfast is a tofu scramble, which I have, occasionally on weekends and when I'm not in too much of a hurry, because it does take a little bit longer to prepare, but that's my other favorite.
Right. I mean, sounds yummy. Wonderful. So do we have more questions from our listeners? Guys, do you have any questions? If you do, please type in. Again, you can type privately if you feel like. And you will have a chance. You may think about questions that you want to ask, and you're going to have a chance to do it at the end. So I think we are going to move on. Thank you very much, Theresa, for your time. I really appreciate you sharing with us. It was amazing. I'm still processing it, because myself, I was always focused mostly on feelings rather than anything else, like health rather than anything else. And I just missed how many people out there actually struggle with weight loss, and how easy it is to be happy in your own body. And it's really easy if with the right tools and right approach. Thank you very much for sharing that. And I would love to move to our next speaker, and our next speaker is Danielle Arias. And I'm really excited for you to meet Danielle, because she has this unique and amazing combination of being a holistic health coach and yoga instructor. And I'm sport enthusiast. I exercise a lot, and for me, just to have an opportunity to talk to a person who uses these 2 powerful tools to keep her health, and her family health on this, on top of things. It's just amazing. So Daniela, thank you for being here today. Daniela is also passionate about coaching women and supporting them and helping to transition to a plant-based lifestyle for ultimate health. And another thing that is just crazy exciting for me is that Daniela is vegan for 23 years. Just think about it. This is amazing. And I can't just wait for you, Daniela, to share your story with us. Please.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anna, for organizing. And thank you so much, Alexandra and Theresa, for sharing your journeys and sharing all of your knowledge with us. I really appreciate it. So I am a yoga instructor and a holistic health coach, and holistic health isn't just about the food that we put into our body. It's also about many other aspects. So I actually would like us to take a moment right now to actually just breathe. So if you feel comfortable doing so, find a seated position where you're able to sit up pretty tall. Maybe if you feel comfortable closing your eyes or casting your gaze down. We're just going to take a couple deep breaths. We've been taking in a lot of information. We have a lot of thoughts running through our head. So let's just take a moment with ourselves. So find that comfortable space and take a deep breath in through the nose. Gently release out the mouth. Breathe in and exhale. Take a deep breath in. Hold at the top. Sip a little more air. Gently release. One more like that. Deep breath in. Hold at the top. Sip a little more air in. You're fine. And exhale. And just take a moment here. You can gently reopen your eyes if they were closed. Maybe roll out your head from side to side or take some movement of your body. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you so I can share a little bit about my journey and let you know where I'm coming from. I'm so excited to see everyone sharing out all these different perspectives of how they came to this whole food, plant-based diet. Mine's a little bit different. Okay. Go. And then if you can just let me know if you can see my screen. Anna, can you see?
We can see, yeah. Yes.
Okay,
perfect.
Okay, so I'm a certified holistic health coach, and I'm the founder of Nourish in Nature. So really about how we can nourish our bodies and also connect with the nature around us and connect as spiritual beings in a human world or in a physical world, and how nature can really provide and connect with us more than just a pretty place to look at, but how we actually are connected to the earth in a way that helps support our health and vibrancy. I'm also a yoga instructor. I primarily teach vinyasa yoga using the breath to connect with movement. So I'm 39 years old and I have two children. I have Luna, she just turned 5, and Leo, he just turned 1 year old. I'm whole food plant-based, but I haven't always been whole food plant-based. I was vegan for 23 years. I went vegetarian at around 11 years old. And when I went vegetarian and vegan, I did so for animals, not necessarily for my health. I was a kid. So as a kid, I was eating vegan food, but it wasn't necessarily healthy. So we'll get into that in a moment. I found yoga later in my life, and that was a big part of my journey to becoming a holistic health coach and a big part of my journey into taking care of myself. So this is my why. This is a little bit of an older picture, but I'm there on the left with the blonde hair, my mother in the middle, and my sister on the right. And my big why is my mom. So I want to preface this by saying my mom is an amazing person and has done the very best that she can. But as she raised us in a way that was not very healthy in terms of food. She actually lost her mom when she was very young, and she had to kind of take over. And she never really learned a lot about cooking from scratch, eating a lot of vegetables and fruits, and she relied heavily on a lot of food that was packaged or processed to get through the day, because she worked a lot and she just would try to whip stuff together for her 3 children, doing the best she could. So we grew up on this kind of food. I would say the standard American diet plus a little more processed food. Top ramen was like, I would have 3 packets of top ramen for lunch. I ate bagel bites. this Lipton noodle soup thing, that was like my jam. I had that all the time. Yeah, this was actually, if I look at this is typically what my food looked like for the day. In the mornings, I would also have things like Pop-Tarts. So like chocolate Pop-Tarts too each morning, go off to school. And the thing is, I looked healthy. I looked thin. I was athletic. I was running around. I was doing soccer. I was a cheerleader. But I was very tired. I would fall asleep sometimes in my car outside of dance practice, just fall asleep. And I was convinced that I was tired because I was studying too hard in all my AP classes and because I had too many activities going on, but it was clearly the food that I was putting in my body. So I ended up changing and going vegan for the animals, which helped because it cut back on some of this food. But guess what? Like I was still eating Oreos and Top Ramen because technically that was vegan. I was cutting things out and not adding a lot in. Unfortunately, my mother ended up getting diabetes type 2 from lifestyle and diet choices. So she was in a position, so I have here like the pills that she's taking, this foot thing she has to wear on her foot because as you know, or you might not know, with diabetes type 2, a lot of times it affects your extremities, your fingers, your toes, your feet. She also is literally had to get needles put into her eyes, like this medicine shot into her eyes with a needle to help deal with the fact that she's losing her eyesight from diabetes. So this has been a really long time with her having diabetes type 2. And I was going through my own struggle as well because I was eating vegan, but not very healthy. So I started to get sick. So for example, my stomach, I would have like really strong stomach pains. And I was starting to dabble in eating a little bit healthier, but I didn't quite know what I was doing yet. I didn't really know about adding a lot of different vibrant vegetables and fruits. I actually hadn't had a lot of those vegetables and fruits because I just wasn't raised on them. So I didn't know too much about them. So I go off to college and then I end up getting a job out of college, a pretty high stress job. And my stomach is, I mean, terrible. I had like pain where I would like keel over and be in so much pain in my stomach. So I started to eat as well as I could. And I started to learn as much as I could about eating healthy. And I cut out things like processed foods because these processed foods, like things like Pringles, this slogan they have, once you pop, you can't stop. That's because they actually manufactured in a lab and tested on people how to get the exact flavor profile to make this food addictive. Now, thankfully, I wasn't addicted to Pringles at any time in my life, but Oreos, yeah, those bags had my name on them. Same thing, the Oreos are also processed in a way that create a response in your brain to want more and more and more and not be satiated. They're not food, they're food stuff. And I was eating a lot of food stuff. So I started to eat much more healthy. And yet I still would have this stomach pain. And I remember going to a gastroenterologist and saying like, I'm just gonna get a little too much information here, but like, I'd have to run to go to the bathroom. Like it would be like, oh, gotta go now, run. And I told him, and I was in my 20s, and he's like, oh, it's no big deal. Like, we'll just give you some pills for it. And I remember leaving and crying on the subway home and saying like, this isn't right. I'm eating healthy foods at this point because I'd stopped eating a lot of the processed foods. I exercise, I ride my bike everywhere. At that point, I started to dip into yoga a bit. And yet this urgency where I felt like I might need to wear like diapers for real, like was coming over and I was like unable to go to work sometimes. And then I realized it was stress. It was stress. I was in a job that was incredibly difficult. My hours were really intense and the amount of pressure that was put on us day in and day out, meetings called, like where the night before you get a text message, you have to be in an hour early. That was like a regular thing. You never were able to turn off the phone. You worked 14-hour days. And then I was like, oh, yeah, I fixed the food, but like there's more to the picture of health than just food. So a couple things here. So the processed food is addictive, right? The companies are profiting off of that addiction. They are making money hand over fist because you're eating this food stuff and not really nourishing your body, and you're addicted to it, so you eat more and more. So this, once you pop, you can't stop, you eat the whole can of Pringles. Like how many people, when they grab an Oreo, they don't eat just one. They keep going back and back for more. The company knows what they're doing. So what I learned through holistic health coaching is that there's a thing called primary food and secondary food. So primary food is not the food we put in our body. That's secondary food. Primary food is everything else around us: our lifestyle, our environment, our movement, our relationship, our career, money, spirituality. All of those things help build who you are as a person and how you are health-wise. So you can be taking shots of green juice and downing a smoothie and have your lemon water in the morning and a big salad at lunch. But if you're going to a job where your boss is screaming at you and berating you all day, you're simply not going to be healthy. It's not like, there's going to be something has got to give. If you are eating beautiful stir fries and you're super like, oh, I got my macros and micros down, and you're putting everything in chronometer, but you're in an abusive relationship, you're not going to be healthy. So what I learned through going into holistic health coaching and being certified in it was that like there is this whole primary food part. And what happened with me with my job and my stomach is that I went to my principal at the time. I was working at a high stakes charter school in New York. And I said, I am not going to stay after 5 o'clock. And I am not going to come in if you call a meeting the night before at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, because I live in Brooklyn and the school is in Harlem and it's too far. And if at any time I leave and you believe that I did not do a good enough job for that day, or I have left something undone, by all means, call me in and have a conversation with me. But I can't just stay here for the sake of everyone is here until 7 o'clock at night. Like I can't, I'm starting to get sick and I need to choose my health. And once I made that boundary, once I decided that, it was probably within a week or two, I had no stomach problems anymore. I just didn't. The stomach problems were manifested from what was happening in my job. So there's this concept in holistic health coaching, which is about crowding out. So we can crowd out with whole foods and non-processed foods. And of course, if we're eating whole foods, we're going to increase our happiness, our vibrancy, and our health. But we can also crowd out with lifestyle choices. So for example, instead of sitting and binge watching something on Netflix, can you crowd out by making yourself busy by creating a work of art, or by taking a yoga class or doing a webinar, right? These are options that we can do to crowd out and build more vibrancy in our life. So I want for a moment for you to just think about, and you can share in the chat if you would like, but I'm wondering why you're here. If you came here today, there was a reason that you decided to take time out of your day and come to a workshop. What was your reason for coming? What is your biggest challenge? How might your life change if you heal that challenge? And I'll go ahead and unshare for a moment just to see if anything is in the chat. Yes, thank you. Irina, the needle in the eye experience should be shown to kids early at school. Yes. And if you feel uncomfortable sharing in the chat, it could just be something that you reflect on yourself about why you're here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and reshare. Hold on, here we go. Wondering how my mom is doing now. Thank you for asking. My mom is still struggling. I can talk a little bit about that. Here Here we go. All right, so when we're looking here at holistic health, what does it mean, right? So we have joy, spirituality, creativity, finances, career, education, health, physical activity, home cooking, home environment, relationships, and social life. Now, in this very interesting time that we're in, I want you to kind of look at this wheel chart and think about what parts of this wheel chart are kind of taken away from us in a lot of ways. So as I look here, and everyone's in different places right now where they live, right? But as I look here, if I am a single woman in New York City right now who does not have a career where I can work from home, the parts of this wheel that are going to be imbalanced are going to be career, finances, spirituality, social life, relationships, physical activity, right? Potentially home cooking, depending on where you live in New York and what's going on with how you can get things delivered to you. So when you look at this holistic picture of health, as human beings, we need that physical connection with others. We need this physical activity. We need outside. And spirituality, for some people, that may feel a little bit like, ooh, she's going to be throwing this in here. But spirituality for some people could just be walks outside in nature. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to a mosque or to a synagogue or to a church. Spirituality for you could be your yoga practice. It could be your running, right? It could be that meditation time that you spend just with yourself or journaling. But each part of these little pieces of pie help make up how we are in our health. So what holistic health coaches do is they look at the whole person. We look at, yes, the food that you're eating, but also what the entire environment is like. And so for me, as a mother with kids who I am taking care of and raising to be vegan and whole food plant-based, yes, I'm thinking about what kind of foods I feed them. And little spoiler alert here, kids eat what's in front of them and what is normal in your household. So I ate Top Ramen and Doritos and Domino's Pizza because that was the culture of my household. The culture of my household for my children is that we drink hot water with lemon in the morning, that we meditate, that we do yoga together, that we draw together and paint together, that we eat a ton of different colorful foods, that you take 3 polite bites of every new thing that you have, because sometimes your palate isn't used to that first taste. It's actually funny, yesterday, my daughter who's 5 was trying to feed my son who's 1 some strawberry. He doesn't like strawberry, he's not a fan. And so she gave him a little piece and he made a face and he spit it out and she goes, "You need to take 3 polite bites, Leo. Sometimes your first bite, your taste buds just aren't used to this new flavor." And I thought, yeah, she gets it. And she is taking those lessons that I'm incorporating into our lifestyle to help support herself in making new food choices and exploring new things. So a quick little tip here that is related to food. So when we look for contributing factors to disease, there are like 5 little factors of preventive medicine that I'm just going to go into real quick. So the first one is the nutritional deficiency. So a lot of times we have a deficiency from not having connection to things like water, fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains, raw and organic sprouts, things like that. If we don't have enough of those substances in our body required for health, that's when you start to get nutritional deficiency. It's not necessarily that it's not necessarily that you're in a position where you are eating all of the right foods and you have a deficiency. What always happens is that you need to be kind of getting the right combination for you, right? So like what works for me might not work for Anna, right? Anna, I eat pasta. Like, sorry, I'm just gonna throw that out there. I eat pasta and I like it and it's fine for me. But for other people, that's not gonna work. So However, I eat pasta with I eat whole grain pasta, and I have a whole bunch of sprouted seeds and nuts and fresh fruits and vegetables. And because I'm able to balance it out, that works for my body, but that doesn't work for everyone. So in holistic health coaching, there's also a thing called bioindividuality. So my lifestyle is different than everyone else's here on the screen. We are completely different people. So there's not one prescriptive list I can give someone for everything they need to do to be their healthiest. It's really about taking control of yourself and experimenting and finding what feels good for you, what doesn't feel good for you, kind of noticing. So at one point in my life, whenever I ate pasta, I kind of felt bloated and weird, and it wasn't really working for me. But we always change in our seasons of life, right? So now I'm okay with it. So now I'm eating it because I'm Italian and I like it and it tastes good. And I don't get bloated. So eating a lot of fresh fruit, grow locally and in season, and then making sure that you're really eating slowly, right? And this was already, I'm gonna just echo what was said before. The digestive system starts in the mouth. Eating slowly, chewing enough, breathing, taking the time when you have your food in front of you to really just be present with that food, thanking your food. Sounds crazy, but we know by a whole bunch of different scientific studies that the way that we interact with and speak around water changes the molecular substance within the water. Like, what does it look like? The same thing, if you've ever seen the rice experiment, you have these 3 jars of rice. The first one you give love to. The second one you say terrible things to. The third one you ignore. Try that experiment. It is incredible. Saying nice things to our food before it goes into our body, not only does it feel good because you're showing that love that you have inside outward, but it also can really help for your digestion, for your presentness with your food, and for you to be able to infuse that food with love. As you home cook, infuse it with love. That's why sometimes you can go to a restaurant and it can be like really tasty food, but like it's potentially true that that chef is super stressed and throwing a whole bunch of angst into that food while they cook for you, and you leave the restaurant and the food tastes really good, and you kind of feel a little bit not sure. That's because there's energy all around us. The food has energy, we have energy, we're all energetic beings connecting, and the food is energy that you're putting into your body. So how do you first honor and care for that food? You take that moment to just thank it, look at it, smell it, be fully present with your food. And then things to really avoid. We know to avoid things like too much caffeine, too much alcohol, nicotine, drugs, right? But some of the things that we kind of forget to avoid are things like too much refined sugar and white flour, animal proteins and fats. These are proven to be toxic in the body, and the toxic chemicals that can be in your food. So a lot of the processed foods actually have toxic chemicals in them that make you addicted to them. So if you see something in a supermarket that could last on a shelf for an incredibly long time, think about how much energy that's going to have to put into your body. That's a pretty low vibrational food. But if you see something that you can freshly pick out of a garden, or that the farmer just plucked that morning and brought to the market, that's a high vibe food that is going to really support your health and vibrancy. Same thing with your household. The chemicals in your food or household detergents or personal care products, you can be putting anything into your mouth that is really good for you, but if you're slathering all over your body, something that you wouldn't also eat, your body is a huge organ that's sucking all of that in. So really looking at the whole body, not just the mouth, not just the stomach, right? And then just a really quick, this I find to be kind of helpful. You can watch out for snacks. So sugar, because it alters your hormone and your energy. Nicotine, that's kind of a no-brainer. Alcohol, it really affects your sugar and metabolism and your weight. So while some studies say that having something like a glass of wine can contribute to some antioxidants, we have to be really careful with alcohol, because what it can actually do is it can really mess up with our metabolism, especially if you're having it with meals. It can kind of spike that sugar intake and the insulin in your body. Caffeine, and I'm not going to tell you to give up coffee. Don't worry, I'm not, but maybe you should. But caffeine can be really detrimental to the body as well, because it is in fact a substance, right? We're not feeling completely ourselves. We're not using all of our energy ourselves if we're infusing our body with caffeine. And then chemicals. So chemicals obviously are going to cause cell damage, and they're just toxins that we don't want. So watching out for snacks can be kind of an easy little thing to use as an acronym to help you. Okay. So I always like to think about what is something really simple and actionable that I can do from a workshop. So, and it doesn't have to be something that I said. It could be something that any of the other speakers said. I want you to think about something you took from the workshop. And then if you could actually convert that into an action. What action could you take this week, today, as soon as you get off the call, that's going to help support you? And then I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. There we go.
And that's wonderful. Oh my gosh, thank you very much. Such a pleasure. It was such a pleasure to hear all these pillars of true health, and just see you, Danielle, as an example of radiant and energetic and healthy and, giving person. And I truly believe that only person who loves what he or she does truly and believes in it is gonna look and talk the way you do. So I really appreciate you sharing with us. And I want to see if we have any questions. Let's see, maybe, or maybe we were just so good at talking on a topic that there are no questions. And
I did want to address, I know someone asked, how is my mom doing now?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So that has been a really interesting journey for me, because I went out in this quest to be a holistic health coach, like mainly for my mom, to kind of like save her from herself. And what I've learned in that process, which has been an incredibly hard thing to learn, is that people cannot change unless they want to. I cannot force her hand. I can lead by example. I can give her suggestions. I can throw recipes her way when she's feeling sick. And actually the other day, she was feeling very sick, like with respiratory, and I sent her a healing broth recipe, and she actually made it. And it was like it was like such a win, right? Because, and she has come to visit me, and I cook for her, and she begrudgingly tries it and makes faces, and her palate is just not used to the kind of food that that I am giving her, right? She's just, it's just, but she does try, and she is open to hearing, but she's very set in her ways, and she's not really willing or ready to give up the convenience of those processed foods. And I think she has a pretty strong addiction to sugar. So yeah, she's still struggling, but she has incorporated things like walks, more hydrating foods. She is not on insulin yet, so we're at least in that like good part there, but she certainly still is struggling with diabetes. Still has a lot of symptoms.
And I really hope that it's gonna change as the more she incorporates the changes that you show her example in, the better she's gonna feel. I really hope so. And Danielle, I wanted to ask if you know from your education if there is a way to reverse diabetes too with food, since we're talking about diabetes too.
Yes, actually, and I would love to send you, there's an amazing podcast, and it's about, there are two men who actually were diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at a very early age, and they have taken down their insulin dependence by incredible amounts through a whole food plant-based diet. So there are many, many different studies and different experiments where people have reversed type 2 diabetes, especially if you catch it early, but also even later in the stages of type 2 diabetes. It is a lifestyle unfortunately, it's a lifestyle thing. So one of the things that has been a little confusing about diabetes is that in the very beginning stages of understanding diabetes, it was thought that it was about sugar. And now as there's more and more studies being done and more people diving into the research, it seems possible that it actually has a lot more to do with processed and meat and dairy that's causing the insulin resistance in the patients. So good news for that is that the more that you're able to really look at how you are using your lifestyle to affect your health, not just food, but also movement, breath, stress, all of those things can actually help to reverse type 2 diabetes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Actually, every year here in Seattle, we have this big, let's see, it's a, how they call it, cookie village, right? Or something like it's a Christmas thing. They create the whole village from candies and cookies and gingerbread village. Here we go. So, and the interesting thing that one year we visited with my family and I saw this sign saying that sugar does not cause diabetes. And I was like, it was years ago. And at that time I was like, oh, really? That's impossible. You're just promoting candies, most likely. And then with the reading more on topic, there is a research saying that it's animal fat that kind of blocks the possibility of digesting sugar the way it's supposed to, like using sugar the way it's supposed to be used. So basically fat just blocks it. And there are many research going on around this topic, but there are definitely ways to feel better and to get better. But it's, as you said, it's a lifestyle change. It's not one thing, not one pill. And I know we're running a little bit late, and I really apologize, guys, but I hope you're staying for a few more minutes with us. I just wanted to ask Danielle, what's your, what lifestyle habits you use on a daily basis? You said you do some yoga, you do a lot of walks in nature, you also meditate. Anything else you do, and anything you can recommend for others to incorporate into their daily lives?
Yes, absolutely. Happy to share. I mean, there are so many amazing things that you can do, but I'm going to give two that I think can be really, really helpful. So one is morning pages, which became really famous by this woman named Julia Cameron, and she wrote a book called The Artist's Way. And the morning pages are used to unlock your creativity, and basically you just wake up and you do stream of consciousness writing for about 3 pages or 30 minutes or so, and it can be anything. You can complain, or you can dribble on, or you can make a list of what you need to do for the day, and then you just rip it up and throw it out or put it away. And what I found it to do, especially if I do it before meditation, is that it just kind of like gets everything out. And what has happened with morning pages for me is that from using it across the years, it has made me, for example, know that I wanted to become a yoga teacher, know that I wanted to be a holistic health coach, realize that I wanted to move away from New York City to the Pacific Northwest. All of those things are things that came up in my morning pages that I kind of was like, oh, like, and I wouldn't go back and read them, especially if you have partners or children. Yeah, I mean, you might complain about them in those. Like, you're just kind of getting those things out of your head and onto the paper so that you can move on with your day. So just throwing them out, ripping them up, and putting them away. I find morning pages to be extremely helpful, especially if I'm stuck in a creative rut, or if I'm starting to feel a little bit like, oh, I don't know what's wrong with me, I just feel a little off. The morning pages can kind of unlock that for me. And then also it's a way, yeah, it is a safe way to complain because you're not throwing all of that on someone else, you're just throwing it on the paper. And then the other thing that I think is incredibly helpful to do is to really cut back on what you consume. And I don't mean food, what you consume in terms of like what you're watching, what is happening on your Facebook wall, what kind of news is coming in, what people are saying to you, how you feel after you spend time with them, and really taking that moment to reflect. And one way that you can incorporate this is you can just take a little time in your day that you're going to say, like, I'm tech free. So for example, you just take take your phone, turn it off, you know, let your family know, like, or if your family's home with you, hey, my phone's off, it's away, I'm not reachable. Your computers are closed, your like TV is off, and you just spend time just being and kind of see how you feel. And then especially if you have spent a little bit time, for example, browsing Facebook, once you close out that browser and close your computer, just sit for a moment and notice. Do you feel better than you did before you looked at Facebook? Or do you feel worse? Do you feel neutral? Do you feel angsty? Are you worried? Do you feel jealous? Just taking that stock of noticing how the things you consume are affecting you and your overall viewpoint.
And that's really helpful, because I just a 1 second, I'm gonna share that I started practicing something like this probably like in January, yeah. And interestingly, that what I was feeling is I was feeling uncomfortable, because I am such a doer by my nature. I need to do things, and just sitting and being is so difficult. And being actually helped me to feel grounded and to feel like more aligned with my emotions, aligned with myself, with my feelings. And it was such a blessing, but it definitely was a journey for me to move into being rather than doing, because doing is easier. We just do things simultaneously, many, and that's what I used to do. And I felt accomplished when I had so many things on my list done, but I never had time to take care of myself, my emotions, and, you know, my thoughts. So I really appreciate you saying that. It's a really powerful tool. Do we have, okay, yeah, digital fasting, exactly. That's so important, and especially right now when we're all locked at home, and that's what we have in front of us nonstop, and all work moved online. That's really important. Do we have any, okay, we have a question, yeah, from, let's see, Samira. Samira asks if you buy veggies and fruits, where do you buy veggies and fruits? And maybe you plant some.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for asking. I do plant a lot of my veggies and fruits. So right now I'm growing Swiss chard and lots of kale, lots of herbs. Tomatoes will be coming out soon, potatoes. So whenever, and romaine, lettuces and stuff like that, microgreens, all of those things are growing, but it's not enough. Like I don't have enough know-how or land really to support myself in that way, and not the best growing conditions. So most of the veggies and fruits, the way that I buy them is either from the farmer's market or from Whole Foods. So my husband works at Whole Foods, so he's there 2 times a week. He does like some of the operation stuff, and we are very, very lucky that we get a discount because he works there. And Whole Foods does this biometrics test where they test you to see how healthy you are, and the healthier you are, the bigger discount you get. So we got a bigger discount based on that. I know Whole Foods isn't accessible for everyone. I understand that. A couple other really great ways to get a lot of fruits and vegetables are joining a CSA, which is community supported agriculture. You basically pay the farmers like ahead of time to say like, I want food, can you please grow it for me? And then they give you big boxes of food. And what's great about that is sometimes they'll give you something that you haven't used before. Like you'll be like, what is this weird rutabaga? I don't even know what to do. And then you have to kind of experiment in the kitchen with that. Farmers markets are a really great way to get food. And in a lot of cases, it can be less expensive to get it directly from the farmer's market. In some cases, it's not. And a lot of farmers markets have SNAP benefits. So if you are using your SNAP benefits, you can use your SNAP card right at the market and get farmers bucks. And in some places, they actually double your farmers bucks, which is amazing. I was on SNAP benefits at one point when I lived in Rhode Island, and I was able to double up my farmers market purchases through the SNAP benefits program. And then later, once I was in a place where I didn't need to be on SNAP benefits, I helped contribute to that program to help others. So that's a really great thing that can happen with farmers markets.
Yeah, that's something to do research on and to consider, definitely. Thank you. Do we have any questions? Is anybody wants to share anything? Maybe to share a story, to give a feedback on what you guys, you know, learned and how you feel about the event and the information that you've got. Let me know. And if not, and even if yes, I still want to thank you, Theresa, Danielle, thank you very much for being here today. I really, really appreciate you taking time and just sharing so vulnerably and openly. You know, it's really amazing to, when you can relate to a person and to a journey and just say, well, I can do it too. And you just empowered so many people by your shares, and I really appreciate it. And I also want to say thank you. Alexandra is not here, but if she sees the recording, Alexandra, thank you very much as well for being here. And also thank you for all of you guys who joined us today and who is gonna, watch the recording. You're gonna receive email later today with all the information, and I really encourage you to connect with Theresa, to connect with Danielle, to connect with Alexandra, and ask what you have to ask. You are here for a reason, and I know that if there was no reason, you would be somewhere else. So if you have your questions answered, that's wonderful. If not, please connect. That's why we are here. That's why we're doing this and having this event. It's for you. It's not for somebody else. It's exactly for you. So I really appreciate your time. And we're gonna see each other. Yes, thank you for, people are saying thank you very much to all the speakers. That's wonderful. Thank you guys. And we're gonna create more events together, I'm sure. We're really waiting when this pandemic thing is over and we can meet in person. That's what was our idea in the first place, to meet in person, to mingle together, to have potluck, just to talk and to have fun. Well, it's still gonna happen. It's still gonna happen. We just need to wait until it's safe, and we just can give each other hugs and be okay with it. All right. So I really appreciate you. And yes, thank you. And have a great weekend. Enjoy a long weekend and a holiday on Monday. Thank you. Bye-bye.